Hi, I'm Bill Warner, a sales representative from the Teneo Group, and we are here today with two experts in the field of information risk management. Today we're going to have a casual conversation, beginning with Paul Warnagiris, a principal partner of Teneo. He's been in the network and security sector for 20 years. Say hello, Paul.
Hello, how are you all doing?
Why don't you say a few words about what Teneo does?
Sure. At Teneo, the way I like to explain what we do is for the small, medium size, and to the mid-market folks, what we do is basically take a step back and look at the network from a holistic picture. We want to see what's going on the network and get an understanding of what exact traffic you have going on as it relates to business risk. So there may be things that you know, there may be things that you don't know. However, what you do know is what's important to your business. So we get an idea of what is important to you, what you're trying to secure, what you think your threats are, and then we take a look at the big picture. We block the bad stuff, we speed up the good stuff, and we let the good guys in. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
And that's why we brought in today the other expert, David Stelzl, who's an internationally recognized speaker, and a recognized data security expert. David, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we'll be bringing you to Bethesda in September?
Okay, sure. This is an executive-focused talk, really, and what I'm doing is spending my time working with businesses on helping them understand what's really going on out there. So there's a lot of hype, and of course there's a lot of truth. And the important thing here is there are some key mistakes I think businesses out there are making simply because of a misunderstanding of what really is going on out there and what it is we're really trying to protect our companies against. So I'm hoping that as I come out there in the fall, I'll be able to communicate with some of the folks that you work with, some of the business leaders in your area on the kinds of things they ought to be thinking about and the things they ought to be working with their organization, really the people who create the information that runs a business and use that information to drive business, how those people need to be thinking about information security as we go through the next, say, 12 months.
And I've heard you've written a book about it, Data at Risk.
Yes. Okay. So Data at Risk has been around for a couple of years, actually, but it's highly relevant. It really does. It's not a technical book. A lot of the security books out there are very technical. This one was written for managers to give some simple illustrations and really kind of a picture of what's going on, an analogy, if you will, to show them what's going on and how to change their mindset. A lot of what's going on out there really is a wrong mindset. And if we would change a few things about the way we think about information and the way we use that information, I think it would fix 80% of the problem out there. So hopefully be able to communicate a lot of that during our meeting.
Well, what are some of those things that have been going on over the last 12 months? What would you say are, I mean, we've heard a lot about targets. How real is the target situation for SMB market?
Okay, well, Target's an interesting case for me, and it's maybe a little bit different than a lot of the information or a lot of the stuff we read in the papers, and I'll explain why. Target's interesting to me. It's a retail operation, so there's been a lot of buzz, for instance, in the Wall Street Journal recently about companies that are in the retail industry, simply because the way we handle and process credit card information, some of the PCI standards, if people are familiar with those out there, don't actually protect information. So here's a company who is considered PCI compliant, so they've got the check mark, and their security people, before this thing happened, and they lost 40 million credit card numbers in this whole thing, and then another 70 million identities were compromised in the process. But it's an interesting case because here the IT people, the security people, were actually raising their hand saying, hey, we need to do something. We've got a problem. And the executive management doesn't hear the problem. And of course, they're focused on another problem. Their problem is largely Walmart, I think, because Walmart being their number one competitor, and Target's numbers haven't been that great over the last, say, 12 months. And so they're trying to figure out, how do we compete with Walmart? Walmart's trying to figure out, how do we compete with Amazon? So, everybody's kind of looking at somebody else. And there's some security guy going, hey, we got a problem. And they're saying, well, hold it. We don't have time for that right now. And what they don't realize is they're getting ready to spend $1.4 billion to recover from something that could have been prevented, somebody coming in through their HVAC connection, which is ridiculous. But yet that kind of thing happens. So this is not a
Dave,
highly sophisticated attack. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Dave, that's real interesting because I mean, you know, they were compromised by the HVAC company, but the way that I see this as it relates to the SMB and the mid market is that any business today that has access to their partners' data, they're the weak link, because what's happening in the particular case of the HVAC company is Target spent millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on their security systems. And then they gave access to a very small HVAC company, and lo and behold, they lost, who knows, it could be over $2 billion after loss of reputation. So the way this relates to the small and medium-sized guys, the mid-market, is that clearly if you have access to your customers' data or to your partners' data, you're the target now, not to be,
right.
So
right. And right, so the whole thing relates simply to any business because it's such a simple kind of attack, and every company, like you just said, Paul, every company is exposing themselves to third-party processing, and even smaller companies do a lot more of that sort of thing than the large companies do. They don't have stuff internal. So who has access to their data? It could be anybody.
So would you say the small guys have to start thinking like the big guys, where they are becoming, targets for the same kind of infiltration?
Well, the thing is that the hackers don't really care where they get, say, credit card numbers from. And okay, maybe Target has more credit card numbers to get than this small company does. But because a lot of the harvesting of credit card numbers is an automated process, or what we might call a class attack, something I can send out to the masses, and it just sort of happens almost automatically, and it sort of does happen kind of like that in many cases. I can go out and harvest that from many, many small companies. One hacker might say, hey, let's go hit a big target, but there's many other hackers who are saying, hey, let's just hit a million little companies because they don't have any defense and it's easy to get in, and the chances of getting caught are slim to none.
So David, what do you see are the top threats that small business leaders should be aware of over the next 12 months?
Well, there's a lot going on in technology right now, so that's kind of a broad question. I would say that the biggest issue out there, or the biggest threat to companies, is the instance of malware. And the reason I say that is because this little thing, sometimes you hear the word bot, which is kind of a robotic piece of programming code, is maybe underestimated in its power. So people overlook that. They're waiting for the guy to come in and hack through their firewalls, or do some kind of big thing like Albert Gonzalez did when he broke into TJ Maxx, which we read about years ago, or Hannaford, or one of these big deals. But the fact is that people are planting malicious code on computers all the time just through simple email downloads, file exchanges, music downloads, social media, and it's an automatic process just that takes control of that computer and allows me to harvest whatever's on that computer. So online banking down to credit cards or anything else, but anything that allows me to steal that kind of stuff.
And that's interesting, because when you say that, as to a person in the industry, it sounds really bad. But the way I like to equate that is, when a bot gets installed on your computer, you don't own your computer anymore. They own it. They manage it. So they could do whatever it is that they need to do. And by the way, they'll also let you keep using it so they don't get detected. That's just an easier way to try to get the message across of what a bot actually does.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of technical people say, well, that's not a critical issue. And I've heard people even say it's not critical because everybody has that.
Yeah, as long as they let you keep working, right?
Right. It's an ignorant mentality, really, and it's dangerous. It's kind of like having cancer cells inside you and saying, well, everybody's got that. It's not a big deal.
I didn't hear you guys talk about the cloud word. I hear a lot about it these days. Is it safe? I mean, should small businesses be considering this type of approach to IT?
Yeah, there's a number of technology advancements going out there, and we almost ought to just mention a couple of them here. So cloud absolutely is one of those. I want to throw mobility and kind of bring your own device, bring your iPhone, bring your tablet, bring your own PC into the mix. Maybe even some of the collaborative technologies that we're using, like this right here, Google+. These are all tools. Dropbox, is a free cloud application. And then, of course, the traditional cloud applications like having your accounting system online or backup and recovery. Are they safe? Well, no. but you know what? We're not going to stop them. We're not going to stop people from using instant message, which people tried to stop a long time ago, and we're not going to stop people from using Dropbox. The thing is, there are more secure ways to do that, but I think the big issue out there is that is it safer to use Amazon's cloud or Google's Drive or whatever, or Dropbox, or is an SMB or a mid-market company going to have solid security internally? And the truth is, most small businesses will never be able to afford enough security to say they're really way more secure than some cloud application. So I actually kind of like the cloud because I know that some of these big enterprises are using it, so they're forced to have higher standards than the average SMB company is going to have. I don't know. Paul, how do you see that?
Well, there's different levels of cloud. If you're a big guy, and I mean the cloud can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but in general it means you don't plug the plug in and you don't pay for air conditioning. So if you're a big guy and you could use the cloud and you're the only tenant in your cloud, then that's not as bad because you can control a lot more things. The thing I would always caution against is if you are the smaller or the mid-market guy, don't do it just because it's an easier way to do it. You have to take a step back and look at what data you're putting there and what controls do you have around that data. You may want to, maybe you're going to go to the cloud, but there's 3 or 4 different cloud options. Assess them all and make the best decision. Decide what's best for your data or your customers' data.
Yeah, I'm almost, if I could just interject one more thing in there, I'm almost more concerned about the end device that those people are accessing the cloud with. Is Dropbox secure? Well, not really, but the end node that somebody is accessing Dropbox with, in most cases, is way less secure. I don't care what size company they're in. And that's probably where a lot of the average hackers are going to gain access to that person's data, is at that point. And so now it doesn't really matter whether they're going to the cloud or going to their own VPN or accessing their server internally. They're on a device that's not secure and they've got malware on it and someone's watching it.
And the thing is that what you realistically need to do if you want to secure your data is you need to apply the same controls to whatever device connects to your data. And so, but the thing is, when it's not your own device, when it's an employee's device, you really can't hinder them as far as their process goes or their access. So what you need to do is look at each device that connects, secure it with the same kind of protections that you have as if it was your device or if it was sitting in your office. And there's a lot of technologies out there that help to do this. So definitely the most risky part of accessing any type of data is the endpoint. But that's where you got to start taking a look. That's what's coming down the road. How are we going to do that? It used to be just, the people are going to bring their own devices in, and it's just something we got to deal with. Well, we've come far enough now that it's something we've got to deal with, but we're going to do it smarter, and we're going to protect those devices as well as the devices we own and control.
Well, along those same lines, what about people working from home? I mean, are we ever going to be able to do that in a secure environment? How does that expose a company?
Well, one of the things I want to maybe sort of hold back in our time here, because I'm going to share it with you when I come up there. But in the Data at Risk book, I address one of the major things that every business is really doing incorrectly, and I just maybe give a hint of part of what that is, and that is that nobody really knows what's going on and who's accessing what when. And so there's this idea of keeping everybody out, but that idea is broken. You're not going to be able to do that. And so the second thing is, well, do you know if something is actually under fire or being compromised? And when somebody goes home, you don't really know who's on that computer. And the truth is that people's home networks are being compromised because nobody at home knows anything about computers. So they might have a very secure business. And then secondly, they've got more than one user on that computer usually. And a lot of people have their kids, they're teenagers, they're doing peer-to-peer networking, they're playing war games, they're on porn sites, they're gaming. I mean, they're doing all this stuff, and all that opens up doors to someone's system that is now connected to a supposedly secure tunnel, but the assumption is it's secure on the end node, and it's not.
Hey Dave, I won't give away your secret because I obviously read your book, so I know what it's all about. So we'll just wait and we'll just keep that a secret until everybody comes. But I gotta tell you guys, it's a great book. You should really should get your hands on a copy and check it out.
Okay, I had a personal question about my credit cards. I mean, they're always being swapped out by the bank. Am I at risk or am I covered by the bank? I mean, I hear there are new chips coming in, ones that Europe uses. How is that going to affect me and my own personal security?
Well, the whole credit card industry in the U.S. is based on trust, really. And it's easy. I had my own credit card actually duplicated in just a few hours in South America, or South Africa, actually. And by the time I got home, I mean, it was compromised in the airport. And on the way home, it took me, 9 hours, 10 hours to fly home. When I landed in the States, someone had already duplicated my card and had already made a $25,000 purchase on it. So that's how fast it happens. But all of us who have had that issue know that the bank generally covers it. What SMB business owners don't realize is that if somebody gains access to your banking stuff and starts doing like wire transfers and things like that in a business account, it's not covered the same way that personal accounts are. So, Bill, yeah, your credit card is probably okay. I don't worry too much about that. I mean, it's costing us money in bank fees, even if we don't realize we're paying for it because they're not sending us a bill. But we're paying for it. And the bank's not, let me tell you, we are. But we're probably not going to lose money on our credit card because the credit card companies are pretty good about that. But a small business owner, if somebody gains access to that account and starts transferring money out, they might be in big trouble and find that that's not covered the same way.
Right. So just in sum, how should a small business view security? I mean, we have a firewall, we have antivirus. Is that good enough? What does a small business really need? I mean, we can't spend millions on security, so what are the basics? Dave?
Well, I don't know that there are basics. What I would say is I'm kind of excited because a lot of the technology coming out right now is helping us move in the right direction. And for instance, let's take cloud for a minute. As a small business, because of course I'm running a small business, and so for me to get access to enterprise class applications and storage and backup and recovery, I can't afford any of that. However, because it's in the cloud, suddenly I can afford it. And the same is true on the security side. I can't afford all the infrastructure that's required today to build out security, but it's available through some of these other third-party providers. Things, for instance, backup and recovery is a security thing, and I can get that through the cloud. Well, looking forward, I think we have to abandon the idea that a firewall can actually keep the hacker out, because it doesn't keep the hacker out. And so it keeps the riffraff out. It keeps the noise out. But in the future, I really have to have some kind of predictive thing that allows me to see what's going to come and to detect it ahead of time, predictive analysis kind of thing. But that's only going to come through some kind of like managed service or something. Nobody in the SMB market is going to go out and build a security operations center or a data center that's locked down like a bank. They can't. They're going to have to move to a third-party provider. There's no doubt about it.
Right. Well,
you could, but that's a lot of money up front. But then who runs it? You need somebody to run it too, and that's where the real dollars come in.
Well, not only that, but you're going to need people who understand security. And if an SMB company has a major issue, say once a year, that person's not going to have experience. So you need somebody watching your security who knows security, and that's got to be somebody who sees security every day. You can't have some IT guy going, "Oh, I'm also the security guy." You need someone who knows what security is, and that only happens with people who are in it every day. I mean, it's like war.
So there'll be no perfect technology that'll keep us perfectly secure, but we will have to rely on experience and people who, know what to look for.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like like legal, like a lawyer. I mean, you need to have a lawyer. You can't defend yourself, And if you can't do that yourself. Security is a war, and you need to have an army at your disposal somewhere.
Sure. Well, we're looking forward to you coming to Bethesda in September. I believe it's the 18th. Why don't you give us an introduction about what you might be talking about at that time?
Okay, absolutely. Well, I'm excited about coming, and I'm preparing now simply by staying abreast of what's going on. We'll start out by looking at some of the major newest trends that are going on, and I'm talking about really the Wall Street Journal level here. So we're talking to people who are running businesses. What does a business leader need to know? What are the trends? What's going to happen over the next 12 months? Kind of, what I predict. So I'm going to give you some, kind of the top 10 things that are happening and what you need to be prepared for. Secondly, I want to show everyone what that one thing is that if you could fix it, 80% of your problem will be fixed. Every company that I run into is at some level making a mistake in the way they think about security, and so I want to show everybody what that is, and then I'm going to show you some of the mindsets from my Data at Risk book that you need to be developing in not the IT people, but the people who work in the business, the people who create data, people who use data, people who manage data, the things that are happening in the business really to generate business and make money for the company. So we really are going to address that so that when you leave, I want you to leave with actionable things to bring back to your team and say, hey, here's how we ought to be thinking about security, and let's have some education here so everybody knows kind of what to be watching out for. So it should be a good talk.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. Paul, any words that you might have as we close this up?
No, I'm looking forward to it as well. Every time I hear Dave talk, it's always a great talk, and I'm sure everybody will feel the same way.
Excellent. Well, David and Paul, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing everybody on September 18th in Bethesda.